Hi everybody, I have a message here from Christy. Hey Ollie, I'm loving your videos. It's a blessing what your channel is doing. You're a warrior and a pioneer. You really do have a gift for this stuff. No hurry on my video unless you want to. Please take care of your voice if you need to. Bless your heart for helping so many survivors to preserve their sanity and lifelong energy during and after being subjected to this psychological spiritual warfare that is narcissistic abuse. I have been wanting to write you a follow-up, and I'm sorry it has taken me so long. I have been a bit overwhelmed with my situation trying to survive and recover while waiting on my pending disability determination. I am relieved to know I don't have to feel too bad if I still can't make a contribution. Hopefully my story will be a contribution in itself for now. In the video you did for me, the calculating evil of the narcissist and the validation was quite healing foothold for me. Despite wishing I would have taken more time and included more, it was the first time I had really felt heard and understood about this stuff, and thought it took a little time for that to think. And though it took a little time for that to sink in, it has been a major catalyst for my recovery. I'm not sure if I will ever be able to thank you enough for this. You are amazing. Thank you. Realizing how much I left out of my initial story made me even more aware of how bad things truly were. And I guess probably why it's so hard to know what all to share when I get the rare opportunity. It's so ridiculous how much I still second guess myself in fear of being ridiculed and dismissed, but I'm dealing with it. It's complex trauma, and it seems any attempt to oversimplify it kind of makes it more complicated, and there are lots of layers to it. It's so good to have a platform like this to figure this stuff out. I hear so many things in people's stories that also happen to me, and the continuing revelations seem to help a lot in the emotional detoxification process. It can be so terrifying to share such personal horrors, and I am grateful to all the survivors who are brave to share. I am a scapegoat daughter of a narcissistic personality disorder Jezebel mother. I am aware there are obviously many assorted flavors of narcissistic abuse, and it seems like my experience is a bit unique due to my social and geographical isolation growing up. I don't hear too many stories where the childhood trauma is mostly ignoring, hostile neglect, and exclusion. Essentially abandonment without being physically discarded. I basically never had a mother or a family for that matter. I was sabotaged from forming any authentic, meaningful relationships long before I had any clue she wanted to destroy me. A lot of trauma deals with horrors that happen to us, but there is also another kind of trauma of the fundamental human things that never happened to us. Basic things like talking, interaction, and play. So in this case, it isn't about trying to forget about something physically violent as much as trying to make up for necessary things I was deliberately denied. I was treated like an unwanted object. I have learned to talk by listening to the radio and watching YouTube videos, and that's no joke. The complete lack of healthy human contact keeps causing me to awkwardly choke or fall flat on my face from the lack of experience in social situations. It's baffling at times how it's the littlest things, the meta communication that often causes me to be re-victimized or rejected and inflames the trauma, preventing healing. I don't mean to get too philosophical, but this is something I needed to address. It's one thing to be gaslighted and treated as though you are completely unworthy of love or care, and another to be viciously triangulated socially at such a formative age as if you are some kind of terrible person for no apparent reason. This toxic shame is so painful, and I understand how it could be deadly. This is a double whammy that a lot of people can't seem to comprehend. To be covertly and overtly smeared and socially alienated by your own mother on top of the ignoring and deprivation is enough to destroy a human being. I'm not saying there wasn't any verbal or physical abuse, it just wasn't a regular of a thing. It seemed to be more of a sport or opportunistic thing when she had me in private, maybe just timing. I honestly think it has to be kind of a demonic possession to be so deceptively cruel and destructive. I had no way to know how other kids had it, or to know that the way I was living and being treated was not normal or healthy. Hopefully someone could benefit from my sharing of how it was for me. I'm still processing. There is so much. I dance around the subject a bit because of the memories. Because of the memories I do have are still so unbelievable to me that I'm afraid I won't be believed or that people just won't care to hear my experiences. It's so hard living. It's so hard living is this post-abuse paradigm. I should write a book. On one hand, I want to forget about all the things that hurt me so bad. And on the other hand, I want to know what happened so I can deal with it and move forward. It's kind of gross, but I think it's kind of like a parasitic cyst. If you don't get that worm and all that poison out, the wound can't heal properly and keeps getting inflamed and causing more pain and problems. Healing can be a disgusting process. One time when I was little, I remember waiting in the car with her, and I was playing a rhyming game. When I got to the letter F, she said the word fuck and didn't hesitate to hit me across my thigh so hard. It was left-hand shaped welt on me that truly left me in shock. I had no idea what I had even said or done wrong, and to this day it still takes my breath away just thinking about it. Do you think this is sadism or what? It still baffles me. It's really psychological terrorism. Yeah, she's the one who said the word. And she hit you. And she liked it. So yeah, it is sadism. Seriously though, how many mothers out there do you suppose make their small child touch their hemorrhoids in the bathtub? Besides mine? Not too many. And why do you suppose a mother would do such a nasty thing, other than being sick in the head? Obviously. I hope this isn't too much, but it is something that unfortunately stands out in my memories of her. I think I told the exact, I know I told the exact same story about my mother and her fucking hemorrhoids. The fact that I could still remember it so vividly from a young age, when I honestly remember so little of my childhood, tells me that this must have been quite a traumatic event for me. I couldn't make this up because I personally never suffered from hemorrhoids like she promised me I would. So I should have no memories of ever having this experience or knowledge or even knowledge of what they feel like. Of course she denies it and says I'm crazy, but I can still remember her taking my little hand and putting it on herself down there. My mother did the same thing. Same thing after Precious was born and she had hemorrhoids. Fucking ass up in the goddamn bathtub. I swear I still remember her smirk. If I only had some happy times so burned into my psyche, this might not be such a prominent and disturbing memory. Maybe I wouldn't remember her as such a monster. It makes me feel dirty and I almost feel I should apologize for telling. Who knows what else she did out of her sick sadistic pleasure. No wonder I was always so quiet and shy and all the other things she would call me growing up that I've been carrying with me. It's so effing sick. Do you think this was trauma-based mind control? Maybe. My quietness out in public with my mother was just based on this tenseness of what the fuck was going to come out of her mouth. Because it could be anything at any given time, anywhere. And the woman, and it was going to happen. It was going to happen no matter where you were. So I think what we do is we try to become invisible. And not even so much at that point. I wasn't trying to be invisible to my mother at that time. I was trying to be invisible to everybody else so they didn't necessarily see me with my mother. See, I knew my mother was an embarrassment, and you did too. And I think that's really where a lot of your quietness and shyness comes from. Because when you have an embarrassing mother like this, you're going to retire within yourself, within yourself. And it is part of a trauma-based mind control too. I don't think that is to get you to be quiet and shy. I think that is just some kind of, again, another sick sadism. Oh yeah, and this was as far as my last therapist would listen to my life story. She told me she wanted to get my life history and had started asking me some questions. All seemed great, but I had barely finished about the bathtub incident and she cut me off and ended our session abruptly. It was crazy. I realized she wasn't going to be able to help me, and she was supposedly a trauma specialist. She obviously had no experience or knowledge of complex trauma, and her disposition fell. She didn't care to hear anything more, nothing past the age of 4. Instead, she then began the fear-based paradigm of treating symptoms with new agey bypassing mind control and premature misdiagnoses, while simultaneously amplifying symptoms with the same old pushing survivors of sociopathy, with the same old narcissistic psychological warfare tactics, pushing toxic medications and treating the trauma sufferer like they are the perpetrator, pushing survivors of sociopathy to the brink of suicide. I'm not saying that I'm suicidal, but this is what happens, and it is a serious problem. It was freaky as hell, and I haven't gone back. And there's where the corruption lies and the evil lies within the therapy community. Because all she's trying to do is draw it out. How do you talk? Listen, you are never, ever, ever going to heal unless you deal with these incidents that you are remembering from your childhood. These incidents that you feel is important enough to fucking bring up to her 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later, however long it is, and they want to fucking cut. No, bullshit. I'm telling you what the fuck's bothering me. I want to talk about this until I get a fucking answer. Because if I understand that, the why and the where and the how of that, then maybe I can put the pieces back together of the rest of it. And don't think she don't know that. Don't think these therapists don't know that. This is about money for them. Pushing medications, she's exactly right. And it's perfect for them if you end up suicidal and end up killing yourself. I tried so hard. We need more research and more money and more this and more that. Bullshit. You need to fucking solve the problem at its root. And I've heard from so many of you who have been in therapy, trying to talk about these things, and it's been brushed aside, and then want to jump ahead 30 years to, like, you know, why you're afraid to take the trash out now, and like you got to work on these skills. Well, no, not if I don't know where this all fucking started. annoys the shit out of me. I got to the bottom of my issues because my therapist let me talk about this shit and talk about it and talk about it. And she wanted to talk about it. She also knew Drunky and Meet Enormous. So I also think there was a part of her that was just so fascinated by it all. She was, I think, that my therapist up in New Jersey, and she was great, and but I think also a part of it was she was completely fascinated by it all. But she cared. That was the thing. She wanted to get to the bottom of it all. She wasn't trying to bilk me for money or bilk insurance or any of that. She wanted it to end. Because she got personally involved when Meet Enormous sent her a threatening letter. Moving on. Therapists who don't know the NPD from the complex trauma should not be in the mental health field. In my honest opinion, and I think there needs to be a way to test these therapists to see if they have personality disorders. You're right, but good luck with that. And let me tell you another thing. Since you got me on the therapist tangent. Okay? It's getting real easy to spot you therapists who are trying to fuck with me. With your bullshit. It's so easy. You give yourselves away every time when you start talking about diagnoses. You use this fucking academia language, and it gives you away every fucking time in these emails. Every time. Stop emailing me from fucking Hotmail accounts, you pussies, so you can just use fake names. This is what goes on in the therapy community. Because they don't want you to get to the root cause. They don't want you to get there. They don't want somebody to just tell you what the issue is and they don't want to give you what you've been seeking for so long, the validation and the point out where it went wrong and where the bullshit is. They have too much power. They don't seem to understand the fact that trauma is an injury to the biological nervous system inflicted by the toxic social environment, and not a mental illness or disorder. They treat all emotion as a disorder, just like a narcissist does. They cannot discern what they refuse to acknowledge. And by ignoring and abusing their clients, they are really actually making themselves obsolete. There is a group that is rolling out in a few months aiming to educate therapists called the Society for Research into Education, Cruelty, and Sociopathy. I hope they can make some changes for the better sake of humanity. This is why I honestly believe your channel is such a powerful and valuable resource in a system that is apparently programmed to bully and perpetuate abuse. I have been shocked at the way so many people respond so negatively towards human suffering. In such a suffocating social atmosphere, you really are a lifeline. You take something that is hard to talk about and provide a reasonably safe environment to bring it to light and even have a good laugh at these narcs' expense from time to time. I hope I don't sound overly dramatic, but it's been so difficult. It's so surreal sometimes, it's hard to put into words effectively without scaring people or sounding too unbelievable. I'm just so glad I understand now, and I can choose to refuse to participate in my own destruction. My ex still tries to hoover me from time to time. I bet it's killing him to realize I wasn't joking around when I told him I didn't want to see or talk to him anymore. I'm sure he was convinced that I would continue to be his supply the rest of his life. He couldn't possibly be less attractive to me now. He ought to know after the hell he put me through how disgustingly arrogant he carried himself. He threatened to kill me years ago if I didn't get an abortion, when he knew I had no family support and no safe place to go. So in my mind, he is a murderer. I felt so isolated and trapped. He said he would be there for me, but it was a lie, and he ended up making me pay for it when he knew I barely had any money. Even when I would leave, he would inevitably hoover me and do the whole abuse cycle repeatedly before I figured it out. Thinking back to when I met him after my divorce, one of the rare instances she ran to my side. I had no idea she smoked weed. As soon as she arrived, she snuck off and smoked with him in secret while I watched my nephew, who was like 4 at the time. This was before I ever even seen the stuff. She seemed pretty pleased with herself. I remember this hitting me like a ton of bricks. I now wonder what she must have, I now wonder what she must have said to him. We literally had just met. I'm sure she must have played a part in setting the tone for the years of abuse that followed. I can't believe it took me this many years to put this together. About 7 years ago, I got involved with a past acquaintance, the brother of an old roommate from when I was basically homeless and trying to leave my violent ex. He persuaded me to go with him to work on the road with his family's contracting company and help them out. He ended up working 16-hour days in the park while I looked after his 2 boys and held down the fort. He offered practically no support, and it really took a toll on me. There was so much gaslighting and fighting, I got pretty depressed. He coerced me over a period of months into signing over my car to switch with his ex-wife's for insurance purposes, since I would be transporting supplies and driving the kids, and a German Shepherd Rottweiler puppy that he got in order to bribe the oldest boy who didn't want to come to North Dakota. I probably don't need to tell you what a mistake this was, because after he had me in his vehicle, he would threaten to call the police every time I tried to leave. He was so manipulative, and I didn't have the tools at the time to deal with his brand of control and behavior. I was used to being mostly ignored or treated like an object. After spending the summer and fall in a camper in North Dakota, he went from telling me he loved me at Thanksgiving to accusing me of cheating and dumping me right before the Christmas party. Left me with nowhere to go, no job, no family, even felt justified to keep and sell my car. Turns out because he hadn't allowed me to take a job offer in order to pay him rent for the 10 months we lived together. He felt like I owed him. It's basically like exploiting somebody for free daycare, housekeeping, shopping, cooking, etc., and then stealing their only financial asset and dumping them on the street for fresher supply. He was married the following spring. I feel like I paid for their honeymoon. I think I'm still recovering from all this theft and betrayal. I was so distraught that this was all used against me, as if I was somehow the perpetrator. It's insane the way he targets get nothing but blame for doing their best and being a caring person. Looking back now, I can see I was incredibly naive, but I certainly never deserved such a cruel inhumanity. It was a brutal awakening. His whole family, who had been so kind and appreciative to me, suddenly acted like I had done something awful to deserve their sudden hatred and dismissal, and turned against me as if I was just upset that he broke up with me, like I just wanted him back. Never mind the fact he lied to me and destroyed my life in exchange for supporting and enhancing his. It was unreal. They were totally brainwashed and so mean. It was so devastating. I was a mess. I took the advice of an acquaintance and tried to take him to justice court, but the judge sided with him and humiliated me in my traumatized state, saying I shouldn't have signed my car over to him. Thanks. The victim blaming is inescapable, and it feels so hopeless when everyone usually sides with the perpetrator. It was mind-blowing and heartbreaking, and I realized I was completely on my own. It's hard to trust after something like that. It's crazy how some of the seemingly nicest, most successful people are capable of conspiring in the most wicked of heartless injustices upon honest, vulnerable people, and has a way of drastically altering one's worldview. I hope it bites them in the ass. I'm not entirely clear on how I made it through. I am grateful for community services in my area, such as the Women's Shelter, HRDC, and the church organizations, but it hasn't been easy. I don't want to be dependent on anybody. I really just want to heal and become the person I intended to be in the world, and not the chronically and negatively misunderstood because of imposed limitations and gossip. The last job I had was a janitor at an art center near where I live, but I had to bail when my coworker began slacking off really bad and verbally attacking me over little things, and I realized I was being triangulated again. A simple comment about something as benign as the spring equinox would be turned around on me into me being crazy and needing a new therapist. I think he has some serious entitlement issues and seemed dangerously disordered. He clearly hated women and I didn't feel safe around him. He would yell at me and get me worked up that I was finding myself crying through entire shifts. These people who constantly, I didn't feel safe around him. These people who constantly call others crazy for no real reason are usually the ones who are the most pathological and dangerous in my experience. They assume because they can't relate to another person, they are somehow entitled to attack and discredit their experience and mental integrity, and thus exploit and destroy them for sport. It's so sick. If you ask me, the only real crazy is narcissism, because of how toxic and destructive it is. The empathy center of their brain has literally been abandoned and shut down. I would say that is a pretty major fault, if not the most major one. My physiological CPTSD symptoms trigger too easily anymore to be able to be complete and be safe in a healthy, toxic, bullying work environment. I am also now over 40, though people always think I'm in my 20s, so it's really easy. Really makes things interesting, to say the least. I can barely tolerate these toxic parasitic types anymore. I'm an artist and hoping to find independence through my creative skills instead of ritually bullied to death for not fitting in just right. Though I am a positive and friendly person by nature, but people's ignorant projections can feel insurmountable. So I strategize and I am practicing boundary enforcement. I try to get out into nature when I can, but I am pretty reclusive most of the time, out of basic self-preservation and the fact that people often only prevent me from doing things I truly enjoy and make a difference in my life. So many people seem to expect my full cooperation and worship without them even showing the least interest in me, and I don't understand that programming. I don't know where they get it. It doesn't work on me. They assume too much. I must look desperate to them or something, or a lone gazelle. However, I'm not an easy target these days. Even the wacko that lives in the apartment below me was targeting me and terrorizing me, but thankfully he was stupid enough to write me the creepiest letter a few months ago, and I exposed him. It was like something out of a psychological thriller or horror movie. I showed everyone, even the police agreed it was really creepy and put it on file. He used to be the snoopiest guy, charming all the churches and charities, trying to come off as a real do-gooder. Seems like he was lurking everywhere, and now I never see him. It's a huge relief. I was quite positive he was using electronic harassment on me, and that has stopped too. I am currently in the middle of a preparation to represent myself in my disability case. Wish me luck. My hearing has been pushed back again, and I guess that's better than being denied, but I hate having to grovel to virtual strangers for getting my needs met. I think I'm advocating for myself pretty well, considering everything, but I'm anxious because of the disinformation and lack of public awareness on the issue. I recently fired my representative. She was not even going to discuss my case with me and was becoming quite a bitch. It became apparent that she was also a narc. The disability lady at job service told me she had a personal experience with her too, so it wasn't me. She kept avoiding my questions and invalidating me, talking down to me and rolling her eyes. She kept saying how she wasn't my therapist, and it was very demeaning. How could I possibly trust her to represent me if she had zero understanding for my condition and refused to even go over the material with me at all prior to the hearing? Talk about insane. That was the whole reason I hired her, but I guess she thought I was stupid and easy money. They really do confuse low self-esteem and vulnerability for low intelligence. I think this must be projection of their own lack of empathy and reasoning ability. Unfortunately, I often freeze around inauthentic people and narcissists, but I'm getting a little better at dealing with them. I think I was pretty surprised when I terminated our she was pretty surprised when I terminated our contract, but she was triggering me so badly that I couldn't see it going well. It was so intense but powerfully satisfying. It is so ironic that I am suffering from a social disability that isn't generated from me, yet I am forced to claim the disability just because my nervous system can't tolerate toxic social behaviors that I have that I have become the norm. Baby step by baby step, I am filling in the gaps, claiming my power and building myself up. The more I learn to reparent my deprived inner child, the more I realize how much my own biological mother never loved me and how I was really set up deliberately not to thrive. It's so obvious now. I have even been told by her flying monkeys on a couple of occasions how she is so worried about me and that she is just waiting to hear that I've killed myself. How nice. She has done nothing but jump at any opportunity to throw me under the bus and discard me. If only these terminators hadn't gotten so blatant and obvious with their abuse, I might not have seen them for what they really are. And though it didn't work for them, I'm grateful for the education, and it still hurts sometimes. Their silence has a way of serving as a reminder of their utter disregard for me. And you were right. I have been erased from their illusion. I'm okay with it now. However, that didn't stop my golden child little brother from calling me in the middle of the night shortly before my grandmother, my mother's father, passed away in February. This was the only time he ever called me in his life. I couldn't answer. I was so stunned, woke me up around 2 a.m. I couldn't even listen to his message, as him calling me was such a shocker in itself that it literally made me sick to my stomach and trembly. It was only a couple weeks ago that I heard this message by accident while messing around with my voicemail settings. It almost made me feel like I should call him and see what's up. He sounded so pathetic, but I also know he has been really good at extracting sympathy and has never exactly been nice to me. So I thought better of it and stayed no contact. After all, he didn't say anything other than he wanted to talk to me. What do you think? Was he just trying to suck me back in and take pressure off? After watching some of your videos about the son husbands, I don't know what to think about their relationship. Yeah, he's just trying to suck you back in. It's not worth it. He'll use any opportunity to suck you back in. It's not worth it. In my last letter, I mentioned how I sent a huge package of Christmas gifts to my nieces and nephews one year, about a decade ago, when I actually had some money. I really just wanted to be there and just wanted them to know I loved them. I wasn't trying to buy their love. I've never been that way. I honestly connected with them. They already loved me and were very sweet on me, very, very close to my heart. I got to be there when the first two were born because they were born during my holiday visits, and I tried to go back whenever I could. I probably should have been more focused on myself, but I wanted to be there for them as much as possible. I was honestly concerned for them and after what I had been through. When my brother received my gifts, I got no acknowledgement at all. When I finally asked him if he got them, he told me they got them and that the kids wanted to call me, but that he wouldn't let them. This is what hurt me so badly at the time. And this is what hurt me so badly. At the time, I had no idea the scope of the dysfunction or what their problem was. He didn't offer any reason or explanation for an apology. Totally invalidating. But he definitely got mean and nasty toward me when I became confused and emotional. Looking back, it does seem as though he was enjoying and feeding on the pain of his ambivalent disregard caused me. Whether it was the result of the vindictive smear campaign or just blind hatred toward me, I now understand it's because he's a hostile narcopath whose identity is based on bullying me. He hates my guts and wanted to hurt me as much as possible. And at the time it really worked. I kind of lost it and felt completely forsaken. This was the first of the obvious and painful clues to wake me up about how they truly felt about me all along. It still kills me that my nephew was so sweet when he was little, and now is one of them and turned against me without cause. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it showed me how pervasive this personality disorder really is. It seemed to spread like a soul-eating virus where the conditions are right. I no longer hope for anything possible from these beings, and it's liberating. I am gradually healing and beginning to move on from a life of heartbreak. It really does take time. I really could go on, but it's still a bit awkward to speak out. I feel like this is kind of a lot, but it feels good to get this weight off my chest finally after years of bunk therapy. I apologize for the run-on sentences and I may have missed. Thank you for being a strong voice in this community. I've been thinking about making some videos and did a little test run, but I think I need to work on my presentation a bit more and also get a microphone. We'll see. Thanks again for your insight and incredible work you're doing. It really helps me feel like I'm not battling alone. Much love, Christy. Well, thank you for your follow-up, Christy. I appreciate it. I suggest everybody go back and view the first video I made for Christy as well, so you know the depth of what she went through. And you're going to be having these issues all along. You're going to have these issues going forward. You got a good basis for it, but it's good to vent. It's good to let it out, and it's good to understand when you're being jerked around by a therapist or somebody who's supposed to be advocating for you, or a lawyer or whatever it may be. Understand something. You understand narcissism now better than the professionals. Anybody who's been watching these videos or anybody who's engaged, you know more about this condition than the professionals do. You just need somebody to help you point it out for yourselves. But at this point, you know more than the professionals. And that's fact. So thank you again for your follow-up, Christy. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody watching. Please leave any comments or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want to support the channel, or if you want your story read, or have some audio of a narcissist you'd like to expose, or a topic you'd like me to cover, you know what to do with the PayPal link in the description box. I'll have the video right back to you. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon. Bye.